It's that time of year again, the run up to Christmas, and today I want to show you how I made my Christmas cards, and indeed how you can make your Christmas cards as well. I've got little stamps on the back of mine, I've got a range of scenes. There's loads of them available on Etsy and they're all handmade, but instead of buying them, I would love you to be able to make your own and feel happy doing it as well. And that's what we're doing today. Now, you might think it starts like this with some cards in front of us, but no, put them away. Let's get our sketchbook out. If we're going to make our own cards, we need to think about ideas first. This sketchbook is way too big, so let's think about the simplicity that we're going to need. Our scene is going to have to fit on a very small page, so we're going to need some very simple ideas. Now, I've been making, I think, over 100 cards so far. So these ideas have to be repeatable and reliable and also fun and also interesting, because let me tell you, making 100 Christmas cards, if they're all boring, it's not going to be that much fun. So how can we start? Well, just brainstorm really simple ideas and think about how to make them simple. So I enjoy putting Christmas cliches into my cards. Maybe a Christmas tree. What is a Christmas tree? It's just a little triangle. Maybe with a circle on top, maybe with some circles in the middle. And now we have a textured Christmas tree with maybe some baubles on. And whilst we're doing this, we can start imagining how we're going to make this even more interesting. And those baubles, for example, might be little flecks of light, little flecks of colour, some yellows and reds. Another idea, some snowmen. And what's a snowman if not 3 simple circles, one on top of the other? And does it matter if they're all, exactly the same size or getting bigger? Or no, it doesn't matter. But just practice a few times with simple ideas like this until they are sort of feeling about right. And then you can start injecting character. Some arms here, some hatching to suggest a sense of direction of the light and to make them feel a bit more 3D. Maybe you can even have a couple facing each other having an argument. Maybe that's going to be the feature of your Christmas card. And I don't want to give anything away, but it's certainly going to be a feature of my Christmas cards. Now, something else I think really fun and Christmassy and really simple to start playing with are things like robins. Now, I do a robin sketch every year. Normally I do a complicated robin sketch for my cards, and I want this one to be beautifully simple this year. So what about just this idea of 2 circles? A little red circle, again we're imagining our colours. A little brown or white circle, we'll see what we end up doing the other colours with. But a robin for me, little bird, sort of round in shape with a red or orange chest. And perhaps sat on a stick, sat on a tree. And that's what we've got here. Now, there are loads and loads of ideas, and what can be useful is then to start building them into scenes. So keep using your sketchbook and playing with ideas. I want my cards to be about me and my style. So let's pop maybe a building in with our 2 snowmen. And I did forewarn you, I liked my arguing snowman. So I'm going to have my snowmen arguing in front of a house. And this is going to make the scene a little bit more easy for me. So think about your strengths. Think about the things that you want to draw and sketch and what you do normally draw and sketch. Again, we can pop my little triangle in. And there, you can imagine this being a simple scene. We need to fill out the foreground a bit. And if we're imagining sort of Christmas, we imagine this white scene, don't we? But snow isn't just white. Snow is, complex, and it's got shadows and shape. So don't forget to just add a sense of that with a simple line. There'll be loads of other ideas you can play with as well. I had a go at maybe doing a chimney. I had a go at doing a Santa looking grumpy. Maybe I'll include these later. But one of the key things is this is a trial and error phase. This is not the point where you expect things to be perfect. In fact, I filled up page after page coming up with ideas for my cards, and just give yourself that fun, that time, that mindset to be able to do the same thing. That mindset, be prepared to throw away ideas that don't work. Don't worry, don't think of them as a waste of time. Also allow yourself to repeat the same ideas or develop from one house to another house and just increase the complexity. It's worth thinking about what might go on the back of your card as well. So for example, you can see here, literally sketchloose.co.uk. I got this made into a stamp so that I could have my cards looking fun at the back. And I tried loads of stuff, loads of things. I tried different pens just to see what happened until I settled on my ideas. And some of my ideas worked, some of them didn't. Here, little ideas which I've not used so far, but are in development. Now with that, let's think about the next step, which is making our cards. And this is what I'm using. So, yep, I've been lazy, and I would recommend if you're making lots of cards, you too are lazy. These are cotton, 300 gram per square meter, A6 cards with a pre-folded line or a pre-scored line. That means that all the cards work. They all fold over nicely. They're really neat. And I don't have to spend hours cutting and scoring. If I'm only making 3 or 4 cards, if I make someone a birthday card, I'll cut it myself and I'll score it myself. It won't be as neat and as perfect, but it will be much cheaper. But cheapness only works if it doesn't take you hours and hours. So if you're making lots of cards, here's my top tip. Cheat, be lazy, and get some pre-cut cards. Or at least that's what works for me. I've got the cards out, but we still need our sketchbook. Get that sketchbook in front of you. You might not copy your idea exactly, but it's nice to have that inspiration in front of you so that as you're creating your cards, you don't feel like you're having to invent it. You can feel more confident. And here it is, our first card. And I'm going to do something really simple. Let's pop a couple of robins on the page. Simple, 2 circles, and a little bit of a beak, a little bit of an eye for some character. These, of course, famously solitary birds, but on Christmas cards they often appear together. More fun, it feels more Christmassy. Popping in now, ideas for a simple scene. Just trying to look at our card and build into making it a bit interesting. Now, not every card will work, so in these first ones, again, like with our sketchbook, just be prepared that it might not be perfect the first time you do it. But here's my version, a couple of branches, give them a tiny bit of shadow, a couple of loose robins, and again, just now that they're on the page, make them feel more secure. But it doesn't yet feel finished, so what else can we add? Maybe some little berries from some holly and some simple holly leaves. These are ideas I've practiced in my sketchbook, I feel confident with. So just have a go yourself, just have a practice, and that will let you feel confident. Now with more complicated scenes like our arguing snowman, I've practiced first. Literally I've put together the scene on the page in my sketchbook. So I can sort of copy it, but I want it to be a bit more refined, a bit more interesting. And if I repeated this idea, each one will be a little bit more different, a little bit more interesting, a little change here and there, little imperfections. Don't let them bother you. That's what it's all about. So the most important bit, the snowmen on my page first, and then we can start building the scene around them. I'm going to pop in some of the foreground first. We needed that shadow for our snow, and that will be really important when we add our colours as well. Now we've got our house, our funny little building, our triangle for a tree, which can overlap. A little compositional thing is if you are putting together a few simple objects on a page, it'll be so much more interesting if all of these objects overlap and interact with one another. Now allow yourself to be creative. My page still looks a little bit empty, so I'm going to draw some clouds. It's a bit of an illustrative touch, but these are illustrations. These are designed to have a few copies and to be fun, simply understood, and just inject a bit of happiness and joy into someone's day. Again, little bold touches in the windows might do the same thing. And then I notice another gap. Again, allow yourself to be creative and just come up with a solution. If I have to throw the card away, I have to throw the card away. But having done it once, I can suddenly be confident about doing it a few more times. And this is where our little mass production scales sort of come in. So I can do one, then another, and keep going and build up quite a few of the same scene. Gaining in confidence, and each one being a little bit different. These ones mostly don't have a house on the right, but a couple of times I feel the need to pop a house. Each of the clouds is different. Each of them is individual. And you can see, by doing this, we can suddenly start engaging our creativity and just coming up with different scenes which are using similar ideas. Enough of all that, it's back to our scenes today. So we have our simple scenes with a little bit of creativity built from our sketchbook. It's time to apply the colour. I'd really encourage you to keep this simple as well. And just, again, you've got your sketchbook, you can practice it. You can try different colours, you can try different brushes. It will just let you see what things will feel like, even if it's just doing a simple swatch of a colour on your page. So for me, I'm going to keep these really simple and fun, especially for my first layer of paint, and that's a clue. This is the first layer. We're not changing our painting processes, just keeping them simple. Here's some gold green applied with a really big brush, and then a little bit of quinacridone sienna. So we're picking out the leaves, we're picking out the orange crest of the robin, and we'll just do a little neutral mix. So some indigo along with some quinacridone sienna to get a neutral to apply onto the branches. Yep, doesn't look like much yet, but it will soon. And we can move on to another scene. So here I'm trying some lavender with a little bit of that neutral in a wet on wet fashion on the sky. I want that sort of gloomy but bright feel that you get from a lovely winter day where it's snowy and white, the sun's sort of up but not quite, and everything's just sort of pleasant and cool. So that's where my lavender and my neutral come in. I think they do a lovely job. Then on top, a little bit of green. I'm just going to let all of these dry, and we'll come back and we'll see what they feel like at that time. Again, if you're wanting to make loads of cards, just get into a rhythm. So here I've sort of adapted and changed my process. I'm doing 2 cards at once. I'm doing a little bit more layering and using a small brush just to apply a few extra details. Now these are things that we'll be doing in a moment on our scenes as well. And on different scenes you might want to subtly change your sky. Here's Moonglow with lavender to create something even more grumpy and moody, and yet with a little bit of fun. With all of that done, should we come back to reality and see what we can do next? Look how soft these colours are. This gives us loads of flexibility, and it means we can come in with a smaller brush and start layering. And the watercolour layers are where we get vivid colours, it's where we get the sort of punchy bright colours, it's where we get the contrast. So allow those first layers to be loose, and now let's see how clever we can be and how we can make this actually really interesting. So here I just applied some painterly green apatite genuine to the leaves on one side, suggesting hopefully a bit of shadow, and now a little crimson touched in onto the reddy orange of our robins. I want this neutral to have a bit more fun, a bit more punch, so I'm using a bit more quinacridone sienna in it, and just trying simple things out. As long as we're gentle at this stage, we can get away with an awful lot of, let's call it, creativity and looseness. Next, bringing my smaller brush, adding simple punches of colour, splashes, small shadows. We're not done yet. Again, this is part of a creative process. This is, especially as one of my first cards, it's part of my exploration. But nonetheless, I'm going to move on to my other scene again. Here, using that same green apatite genuine, this time mixed with a little bit of neutral, just to layer into the tree. A simple layer of greens can create so much interest in a tree, so much texture. Into the buildings, I'm using some yellow ochre along with a little bit of quinacridone just to get that bricky feeling. And I mentioned earlier that reflected colours are really important, and shadows, especially bluey shadows, really important in snow. And these simple layers, these simple touches, for me, start to build up a nice effect. In our tree, just like in our robin scene, we want some punches of colour. And that's what I've added with those little reds and little bits of yellow. Now, a top tip, if you're looking to make things bright quickly with specific lovely textures, try some watercolour pencils. These are actually Inktense pencils. And using them, a couple of greens, a couple of reds, a couple of neutrals, you can really lift the colours in a scene. You can apply an interesting texture. Now these will be able to be moved with a little bit of water. They'll be able to create textures and bright punchy colours where we perhaps don't have them so easily with our watercolour. It's not that it's not possible with our watercolour, it's just that it's very easy with our pencils, and they create this bold, vivid look. And these are illustrations. These are simple, pretty, fun illustrations. So trying out different techniques and ideas that let you get bold and happy colours on your page quickly. Wow, why not just give it a go? Why on earth wouldn't you just give it a go? And do be experimental with them as well. If you're feeling fruity, if you're feeling a bit of fun, you can splash beautiful vivid splashes, which are quite easy to control actually with these pencils. And you can also paint directly from them. You can lift a bit of pigment from the pencil and then just paint with your brush. Now, like any of my painting processes, we move on to just adding a bit of structure. We've had our fun, we've had our play, we've created a bit of havoc on the page, and now a simple, bolder ink line, just outlining the key shapes, maybe adding a few details, maybe adding a bit of contrast or even some hatching, and the scene will really start to pop. And hopefully you can see as I do this, the scene kind of comes to life, starts to be really fun. Pop our signature on, get those pencils out one more time, add some fun textures, extra bits of boldness where we might have under-bolded before, if that's a word. And then we can grab the next one out and we can repeat that process. And as you develop your mass production system for your cards, you'll start doing what I'm doing here, holding a pencil in one hand and scribbling in the other, perhaps 2 pencils, a brush and 3 pens. Maybe you can hold even more. And you'll just get into the flow of things. You'll start discovering new things about your little scene. You'll start having fun changing things, giving different expressions perhaps to your Robin, making your snowman hug instead of fight. And if you're anything like me, creating a huge number of different scenes and enjoying yourself whilst you do it. Now, do take a little bit of thought about what goes on the back of a card. So for me, I got some stamps made, which I also brainstormed in my sketchbook. So I have a sort of my normal logo, my lighthouse. I've got a little funky house with a Christmas tree in front of it. And I think just think of little ideas like this, make your Christmas cards feel really finished. So that's what mine have got on the back. Now, every year I make some Christmas cards, but I've never been more proud of my cards than this year, where they're all handmade. They are available on my Etsy. And if you want to see more of me making Christmas cards, I have filmed almost the entire process. So I've got loads more to make. I'm happy to do some more filming, show you more of my ideas if you would like. Just let me know down below in the comments.